What's up, SE Nation? Ramsey here. Last week we talked about, or at least I talked about, the three base skills that every sales engineer should have. And we talked about curiosity, technology, and human skill. We're going to dig deeper, and today we're kind of talking about the skills pyramid because we just developed the base layer. At least we know what we need to develop in the base layer. And now we need to start building on top of that. To achieve mastery, as Chris White would call it, you're going to have to work on a lot of different things that sales engineers could do, should do, or maybe as bonus might be able to do. However, today they don't do it because of, well, reasons. So let's dig into it. Let's talk about what are the things that we're supposed to be working on, how we're supposed to improve as sales engineers. So we talked last week again about the base layer, the three base layers. If we're going to build on top of that, we are going to need something that we use a lot of. And the one thing that comes to mind right away is communication. Because we're going to be talking to customers, whether it's through email, phone, text sometimes, Slack, in presentations. We're going to be talking just over lunch. We're going to be sending emails that might be bad news. If we're going to pass on our project from pre-sales to post-sales to implementation, we're going to have to develop a way to transition that. And we need to make sure that everything is taken care of. The customer is not going to be surprised by a miscommunication between SE and implementation team, because that might screw up the deal in the end. And we all want to help the customers. We don't want the implementation team to feel overwhelmed by the fact that they don't have all the information. They don't want to work with us in the future. I worked in network design, and whenever I worked with a sales engineer who didn't provide me any information and I had to do a rediscovery on my own, it was horrible. Like, most customers would think, why is this person doing the same thing that the SE did previously? I'm going to have to ask the same questions. So make sure that you're communicating very well with everybody on your team. Typos, although they may seem not important in an email, they are fairly important, especially if you say the person's name incorrectly or you use their last name as their first name. There's someone in my company who calls me Ramzi, which is my name, but always writes my name as Ramiz. Now, I'm not a customer, so it doesn't really, I think it's funny. But doing that with a customer, especially a new one where you're trying to build a relationship, it just shows that you're not paying attention. So go the extra mile, pay attention to what you're about to say. Everything that you say is strategic. I mean, you're not trying to sell them on everything you say, but make sure everything you say is adding value to the deal. So enough of that. Let's move on to the next one, which is asking the right questions. And again, that's part of communication, but we're taking communication to the next level. We can go meet with customers and we can ask a bunch of questions, but figuring out what the right question to ask, the right way to ask it, what the follow-up should be to that question is very important and will enable you to unlock information that they might not provide to the competitors. We have to dig deep. Sometimes it's painful for the customer, and that's where empathy comes in. And you try to put yourself in their shoes and figure out how you can ask the customer the question in a way that they will open up to you and not shut down. And a big part of discovery calls, asking the right questions, is follow-up. Not just following up to the question that they asked, but following up with the information that they requested or the action items, or you following up with them on the action items that they have to do. That's all part of asking the right questions and discovery in general. So if I were to change this, asking the right questions, I would change it to performing a proper discovery. It's the same thing. Discovery is not just what happens inside the meeting, is what's happening outside the meeting, before the meeting in terms of preparation. A lot of things go into it. Now, let's go into one higher level, demonstration. Many sales engineers just talk about demos like that's it, that's their job. The question I have is, how do you know what to demo if you don't do a proper discovery? And we get a lot of questions from SEs like, hey, should I be part of discovery? Yes, as much as you can. Now, there are some realistic expectations where if you're a sales engineer tied one-to-one with a salesperson, you might be able to tag along into every discovery call. Go into discovery calls will help you build the relationship. The more you meet customers, the more you build relationships. But if you're one SE tied to, I don't know, 10 salespeople, that might not be very realistic. On the other hand, if you're tied somewhere in between, you're going to have to use your judgment. If you can go to as many discovery calls, you should go. It's always hard to get information secondhand. Even the customers might not have the right information, but if the customer tells your account manager, who doesn't really understand everything and doesn't know what questions they might need to ask as follow-ups, and then they come and tell you and say, oh, they need a demo, you still don't know what to demo exactly. But let's talk about the demo specifically. There are specific ways to do a demo, and everybody I talk to on the podcast, they kind of complain about the Harbor tour and clicking every button that may not be used. But that's still a major problem that I see from customers. They show what the setup is. You don't want to show the setup because the setup happens once. If that's like a selling feature for your company where, hey, you set up in 5 minutes and you're done, have most of it ready and make sure the setup is one click from your end, and then you keep going. And there are so many books to talk about. I mean, Chris White talks about it all the time. A Great Demo is a great book to learn how to demo, and it's focused on demo, not discovery calls. Then you have Demo to Win that has a lot of information. They also talk about discovery calls as well. If you haven't read Master in Technical Sales, you should read that right now. Even if you don't read the entire book, it's kind of like a university course book. You can just pick and choose whatever you want to read. Demonstrating the right way will help close deals faster and better. If you're demonstrating the wrong way, you can lose deals, you're going to lose interest. A big part of the demo is knowing who you're demoing for, the audience, because you might have 5 people in the room, you might have 20, and each have their own requirements, their own needs, their own wants. And you're going to have to tailor your demo based on their needs, their wants, their requirements, not what you think is cool. Performing a demonstration is a great skill that you should have. And we're still, as you can tell, still building the foundation of sales engineering. Now we're going into somewhat of a little bit of a hard place. And that's being able to say no. No! Saying no is hard. Saying no to your customer when they want something and you can't provide is hard. Saying no to your account manager when they want you to do something and it's just not doable is hard. And a lot of times we end up going down rabbit holes where we don't want to say no, so we just do as we're told, only for a few weeks, months, whatever down the road. We're going to have to tell the account manager, the customer, the product manager, whoever it is, that we cannot do that. I was working on a lot of different opportunities, and my account manager was telling me,
let's get these done.
And in the end, I didn't have time to work on all of them. So I came to him and was like, hey, which one is the priority and which one's the least important for us? And it's like,
oh, they're all important.
Well, no. There are some that are more important than others. And if you're not going to tell me, I'm just going to go by size of the deal. You only have so many hours in the day. And I talked to Peter Neer, Director of Sales Engineering for VMware in Canada. And he talked about, like, sometimes we have to work overtime. It's a fact. Pretty much, it's not a fact tied to sales engineering. Whatever role you're in, you might have to work overtime, which is fine. But if that's the majority of the time, that's not good. He says at 5 o'clock, he goes outside, he sits, and he has a beer in his hand. He sits in his backyard, has a beer in hand, and has casual conversations for work. But he's the technical director of sales engineering. If you're a sales engineer and you're working every day till 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night, you're going to have to learn to say no before you burn out. For your mental sanity. It's one of the hardest skills that you can learn. And you don't just have to say no. You can be polite about it. You can provide alternatives. The customer wants feature A. Well, we cannot provide feature A. We can provide feature B that does the same thing as feature A and a little bit more, for example. Or we just can't do what you're asking us to do, Mr. Customer. I would love to sell you this, but I don't want you to be angry at me afterwards. And you can do the same thing with the account managers. No, I cannot do a demo without a discovery, because then it will probably not close the deal. If you want me to help you close the deal, I'm going to need to do a discovery. These are all examples that you're going to have to apply into your life. And actually, please comment below. What are some things you struggle to say no to, and you know you should say no to? I really genuinely want to know what you guys are facing. So now we say no, but generally speaking, sometimes we do demos, sometimes we say no to demos, but a lot of demos end up in pilots, proof of concepts, proof of values, whatever you want to call it, implementation, if you end up closing the deal. And that's where we have to have our project management hat on. So let's define a project, and I'm just going to read it off my computer. A project is defined as a temporary endeavor with a beginning and an end, and it must be used to create a unique product, service, or result. Now, when you're doing a proof of value, it has a start date, and hopefully it has an end date. I've seen a lot of open-ended proof of values started that never end, mainly because we didn't set the expectation. We didn't tell the customer, this is when you're going to start, this is when you're going to end, and this is when you tell us if you're going to buy or not. So it has a start date and an end date, and we're creating unique value. Basically, we're trying to help them solve a problem, obviously. But then you're going to have to figure out who's doing what at what stage. Day one, we're integrating into your system, for example. I work in test and measurement. A lot of times there's physical hardware, so day one, I'm ordering the hardware to come up to my office. Day two, I'm setting it up, although I live in Canada, so it takes more than 1 day to make it. But you get the gist. Day two, I do the setup. I configure everything that needs to be configured. Day three, I meet with the customer. So we have day 1 and 2. They're still part of the proof of concept. The customer is not involved. Even before then, we're talking with the customer, like, what do you want to see? What are the success criteria? What milestones do we need to achieve for you to say that this has been a success or this has been a failure? What are the features that are important for you? What are the end results? All these are part of the project management that a lot of times SEs have a hard time talking to account managers and customers about. The account managers just want to provide, and they want the least amount of friction, and the customers just want the equipment so they can play around with it. That comes to saying no. We're going back to the basics, saying no. We cannot do that. And you don't have to say no, you can't do that because we don't do that. No. My experience is that if we do that with you, Mr. Customer, you're not going to have time to actually work on it, and the trial period is going to end, and you haven't even had the chance to try it out. Mainly because we haven't planned it ahead of time. I would like to have a plan ahead of time so we can make sure the tests that you want to see are actually doable, and we have the right support for you when you need it. Again, what's in it for them? That's what's in it for them. So we're doing project management, and we have the ability to say no. And we're doing the discovery because we want to know what tests they want to run, because now we're digging a little bit deeper into their testing. So we're always building on top of the pyramid. I mean, I didn't get to project management without knowing the technology. I didn't get to asking the right questions without knowing the technology. I didn't get to project management without the ability to say no. Otherwise, there wouldn't be project management. I would just drop off the equipment and tell them, good luck, I'll see you later. I'll see you in a few weeks. All right, well, the intention was for me to go through the entire pyramid in one shot, but we're already 30 minutes into this, so I'm just gonna call it a day here. If you have any questions, please make sure to ask your questions in the comments. If you disagree with me, if you agree with me, I would love to know. I'd love to know what you guys are facing in terms of challenges of going up the mastery pyramid, if you will. So let me know. And with that, I will see you guys later. Oh, share, like, subscribe. Peace.